One of the most underutilized and unsung heroes in all of Google Sheets is the checkbox. And I think the reason why this is the case is because we've seen a checkbox throughout our entire lives. And it just means like, yeah, cool, we've completed something. But if you use it correctly, you can do so much more than just marking something completed. So after this video, you'll start thinking about a checkbox more as a trigger than just a checkbox. And you can do some basic things like creating a summer checklist or an attendance tracker, but you can also do some really advanced things. So for example, whenever I click this checkbox, it automatically searches for that account name. And if I want more characters, I can click a different checkbox. And to limit my results in large lists, by default I only have 5 values that show up, but I can click another checkbox and it increases my limit to see more options. There's also automation to add yes whenever a checkbox is clicked. You can also use a checkbox when it comes to calculations and configuration. So for example, right here we have our Q2 target attainments. They look pretty high, but that's because May 2025 is not included. Once I check May 2025, now those drop because it's now reflecting the current month. You can also select which values you want to be included in whatever calculation or filtering you're doing. So for example, I can check or uncheck specific users. And that's a super easy way to only include the people you want to include in your charts and your formulas. And it's super easy to update. So if we want to include all active users, we can check all active users. And now we have every single active user on this list. And the chart only reflects the active users as well. All right, so now let's go ahead and dive into how each one of these work. But before we dig into the formulas and the configuration, you need to understand how checkbox work. And it's just a visualization, so anything that's checked on the back end is marked as true, and anything that's unchecked is marked as false. And to add a checkbox, all you have to do is go to Insert, Checkbox. And the official way is to go to Data Validation, Add Rule, and then from the criteria, drop down, select Checkbox. You can also use custom cell values, so instead of by default it being true and by default being false, you can change checked to being attended, for example. Now instead of true, it shows attended or whatever else you put there. For the sake of this, I'm going to leave it as true, and we'll continue. All right, so if you are making a little checkbox completion list, and you want to add some conditional formatting, you can select the range, go to conditional formatting, then go to custom formula is. And here we want to point to the cell where the checkboxes are. So the checkboxes start in B4, so we'll put equals B4 equals true. Now if you look at our little table, you can see that the formatted cells are actually in 1 through 3 instead of 4 through 6. And that's because we have our applying range starting with row 1 instead of row 4. So once we fix that so the row in the formula matches the row that starts the range, the formatting will adjust to be accurate. And from there, we can do conditional formatting as normal. So let's say we want to have no background, and we want to have a gray font, and we want to strike it through once complete. I can hit done, and you can see that whenever we check a box, it's now going to cross that off our list. And as a reminder, that's possible because whenever we check a box, it's now equal to true. Now checkboxes are always going to be true, but unchecked boxes could be false, or they could just be blank entirely. For example, if you look at the percent attended, it shows 100% even though we have a bunch of missing values. And that's because the checkboxes, instead of showing false, are blank. So it's only calculating the ones that are true. So we're gonna go ahead and add those checkboxes back. So we'll go to Insert, Checkbox. And now whenever we check the checkbox, it will calculate the percent attended correctly. And checkboxes don't usually lose their value unless you manually delete it, or in this case, it's because I tried switching over the name. And to understand the reason why this happened a little bit better, let's go ahead and dissect the formula. So the first thing we're going to do is find count if the range is equal to true. And that gives us the quantity of however many trues there are within that range. Now we want to find this divided by the total, so we're going to do divided by count A and select the range. And if any value exists in there whatsoever, count A is going to count it as a value. So what we're going to do is we're counting all the trues divided by anything that has a value, which is equal to the trues and the false. So if the false doesn't have a value, it won't be included in the count A's. And instead of dividing the trues by the total, we'll be dividing the trues by the trues, and that's going to be 100% every time. For the checkboxes to make sense in my fuzzy match template, you need to understand how this works to begin with. So I have all my Salesforce data imported into my auto data tab, and then I'm comparing whatever list I put into my account list. So this could be sent from marketing, sent from random sources, whatever. But essentially I'm trying to look up the names and sync them to whatever I have in Salesforce. And fuzzy matches are essentially when things are the same, but they don't match exactly. So for example, on one list I have Gnarly Napkins Inc. and the other list I have Gnarly Napkins. So it's not an exact match. And this could be for websites or company names. Websites usually have less variability, so I simplify the domain and then try to match that up too. So for example, we try to match up the name first. If the name matches, we return the Salesforce ID. And if I can't match that, I try to match up the website. And if I find either of those, I put that under auto match. If I can't find those, then it's flagged as not being able to be matched. And anything that can't be matched automatically goes to my search tab to manually look it up. And this is where the checkboxes come in. So all I have to do is check the checkbox in column D, and that automatically searches whatever characters I have listed hidden in column C. So you can see here we have the left first two characters of whatever the account name is, and that's what is going to be toggled. In the checkbox in cell J2 toggles between two formulas. By default, when it's false, it's taking the first 2 characters. And when it's checked true, it's going to take the first 5 characters. So all I have to do to search 5 characters instead is simply check the box in J2. Otherwise, it's a basic if statement where if J2 is false, I'm going to return one thing. If it's not false, then I'm going to return a different thing. Now to actually extract the search value that's in column C and put it into J1, all we're doing is an XLOOKUP formula. So inside XLOOKUP, the search key is going to be the word true because remember checkbox checked is equal to true. And it's going to search in all of column D, and then it will return anything in column C that's related to that column. So whenever I check that box, it automatically finds the first value that says true and returns that. If you have multiple values that return true, then it's only going to show the first one. So all you have to do is check and uncheck one at a time, and it will automatically search that value. I also have an app script automation set up where wherever D is equal to true, it will automatically add the word yes under reviewed for that row. And that helps me just keep track of what % I've completed. But that's a bit advanced, so I'm not going to go over the app script code here. Now, whenever you get to the search, you can see that we populate all the results, and we're trying to find the Salesforce IDs. Now we have a limit of 10 whenever this is checked. We have a limit of 5 whenever it is unchecked. And you can put whatever limits you want, but in order to do that, it's a simple if statement where if K2 is equal to true, then return one value, otherwise return the other value. And the reason why you need limits is to keep your spreadsheet running smoothly. Otherwise, if you're populating thousands of values each time you mark the checkbox and you toggle through the checkboxes very quickly, it's going to slow things down too much. And these checkboxes save me so much time. Now, for the performance, let me show you how this works. To find the quarterly performance, we don't want to have every single month included in the quarterly performance because if the months haven't happened yet, they can't attain it. So whenever I uncheck a month's value, it will subtract, and whenever I include the month's value, it will include the total amount. And this is probably more simple to do than you think. All it is just a sum ifs formula. So we'll type equals sum ifs, then the first thing we need is our sum range, then followed by the criterion. So the sum range will be all of our targets, and that's listed in row 6. And then our first criterion will be whatever quarter we're in for that month. And it needs to match whatever we have right above in the column. So in this case, it's Q2 of 25. Then we want to make the second criterion where anything in row 3 is equal to true. So if it's checked, it's true. If it's not checked, it's false. And this allows us to include either 1 month, 2 months, or all 3 months of the quarter. And this is important because we're dividing the total attainment by whatever that total target is. So if we were dividing by the wrong number, it would be incorrect. And for this formula, we're doing a standard XLOOKUP divided by a nested XLOOKUP. And if you don't know what a nested XLOOKUP is, it's kind of like an index and match alternative. And all things XLOOKUP are super cool and super useful. I have a full tutorial on XLOOKUP and different hacks, so make sure to see that. It's linked down in the caption. Now in column A, we have another checkbox, and that will include or exclude anything from this filtered list. And that will make it super easy to configure the chart exactly how you want it before you send it out to everybody. This is typically used for having inactive or active employees, but you can use it however you want. So if you only want to show the top 3, you can. If you want to show everything that's active, you can. If you want to show anything that's inactive, you can also do that. And you can filter by different months. That way you can show the target of the people that were actually there at that time. And when I upgraded our reporting to include this chart, I got raving reviews. So if you want to learn how to build this chart as well, I have a full tutorial showing exactly how to build it step by step. I'll link it down in the caption. All right, so for the formula to only include things that are true, we're going to use a filter formula. We're going to filter everything in column D to D, which is our names. So if we go to our AE performance, you can see in column D we have all of our different names. And we're going to filter it only where column A is equal to true. So anything that's not true is going to be excluded. So we're going to filter column D, return all the names where column A is equal to true. Now whenever we select different options, they will or will not show up based off of what is marked true. And with these upgrades, it turned something that took about an hour, hour and a half, depending on what month it was, into something super easy. So all I have to do is just post the results, mark whatever the current month is as true, so that way it's included in the quarterly performance. And then I can just check whoever should be included for last month. So even if they're inactive now, if they were active last month, I should still check them. And anything that's checked will automatically flow through into our performance charts. And then I have my performance charts automatically synced to my deck that I send out to everybody. So a process that originally took over an hour now takes about 5 minutes to do. And for the fuzzy matches, it used to take me a long time depending on how long the list was. And sometimes it could be upwards of 1,000. That took like 6 hours. But instead of having to stop every 5 seconds and copy, paste, do whatever, I can simply click the checkboxes, toggle what I need to toggle, and then I can copy whatever Salesforce ID that I find, paste it in the worksheet, and then now I can link those together manually. And I have a full list of every Salesforce ID, whether it was found automatically or manually, so I can avoid creating duplicates and things like that. So at the end of the day, a checkbox is whatever you make it. It could just be a little check saying, yes, I completed something, or you can use it as a trigger in configuration for something so much larger. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you have any questions and like and comment for more.